Okay, so the numbers are settling a little bit there. There are people joining the call this afternoon. So welcome everybody to virtual UCL Medical School. It's brilliant that so many of you are thinking about medicine as an option for your future career and that you are thinking about potentially coming to UCL. Brilliant. So welcome to our open day. So we're going to spend about 15-20 minutes at the beginning of this session just running through some of the intricacies of our course here at UCL. Just to remind you, I hope that lots of you might have already seen the video that myself and Professor Gishin had online that you could have a look at with some more detail about our course. You're very welcome to look at that afterwards as well. And then we will move on to a question and answer session. So hopefully we can answer all the questions that you have about coming to university here at UCL. And so my name's Sarah Bennett. I am the admissions tutor for the medicine programme. I'm also the deputy programme lead, so get involved in all aspects of the course. But I was also a medical student at UCL, and so I've obviously only got good things to say about working and studying here, but I hope that you will find that this is a place that you might want to come and join us to study at. So to begin with, we'd love you to get involved. So please join at www.menti.com and use the code that is at the top of the screen there, 72482800. Because we'd love to know where you're joining us from, because we may well be having lots of people from across the world. It might be nighttime where you are. It is the afternoon here, and unfortunately in London, it is currently raining. And so I hope that it is a bit brighter where you are. So welcome to those of you from the UK, from Manchester. We'll see where the furthest is. Chelmsford, Kent, Brighton, Huddersfield, Aylesbury, Devon. Frankfurt, there we go. We have some overseas. Singapore, that's the furthest so far, I think. Fantastic. Shrewsbury. Excellent. Sorry, USA, welcome. Nottinghamshire. Burnley, Skipton. Thailand. Hong Kong, Romania. Superb. Amazing. Well, it's great to see New Zealand. So many people from so far across the world. Thank you for joining us. Goodness knows what time of the day it is in New Zealand, but you're all very, very welcome. So what year are you currently in? So obviously this is sort of the UK system, where year 12 is lower sixth, is in that sixth form period. Year 13, the final year of school. Are you on a gap year? Are you doing a degree? Year 11, year 10, you're thinking about it already. That's fantastic. A graduate, amazing. Most of you at the moment are in year 12, so you're just starting or just coming towards your exams in year 12 and really thinking about your UCAS application at this point. So fantastic timing. It's great to see you all here. So a question for you. So some of you may well have looked at our website already, but when did UCL begin training doctors? And I will say that all of those dates have relevance. So let's see if you know the answer. Okay, so 34 of you are absolutely correct. So 1834 was the right answer. That's when UCL started training doctors. And that was when University College London Hospital was opened. So the first hospital to be next to a university to train students that were learning their basic sciences at UCL. 1826 was when UCL first opened as a university. It was one of the first universities in the UK that admitted students regardless of their class, regardless of their background, their religion. And so that was very different at the time to most other universities. 1987 was when UCLH joined with the Middlesex University Medical School. And in 1998, we were also joined by the Royal Free Hospital Medical School. So we are a university that's made up of 3 separate medical schools. So we have a long history. And finally, I'm sure you're all here because you are thinking about it. Some of you might not be sure. Lots of you are definitely sure you're going to apply. Look at that, lots of people. Some of you, maybe you're still hovering, you're thinking about it, maybe some other healthcare professions, maybe going into some research, but you're doing absolutely the right thing by being here today and thinking about your options. Fantastic. Well, that's great. Most of you are definitely here because you want to be a doctor. Super. So I'm going to move on now to a few slides. Whilst we're talking through the slides, please do use the Q&A function on Zoom. So that is the function at the bottom of the screen that has 2 speech bubbles. On there, you can type your questions. So in the background, we have some of our medical students and some of our staff who are there to type some answers to your questions. So they may well be able to give you some links and to be able to answer your questions as we go along. And we will choose some of those questions to ask our panel to answer live towards the end of this webinar. So please do start popping your questions in there. So I'm just going to stop sharing this one and just move on to my slides now. Fabulous. So I'm going to hand over to Professor Fagishan to tell you a little bit more about UCL Medical School.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Bennett. So hopefully you might be able to see me in a moment, but if not, you can hear me. So my name is Professor Fagishan. I am a palliative care doctor and I'm head of UCL Medical School and head of the MBBS Medicine program. So it's very exciting to think that some of you will be UCL doctors and you will be doctors, and that's a fabulous thing. It's a long road, but the rewards at the end are great. So eyes on the prize. So we get asked quite frequently, why study at UCL Medical School? Well, it's not all about the prizes and the rankings, but we are a very academic medical school in a very academic university situated, in my opinion, in one of the greatest cities in the world. So London is fantastic. Some of you live in London. Many of you will have been to London. And we did retain our 6th in the world QS World Rankings just a couple of weeks ago. So we're pretty proud of that. So you said this at the beginning in your Menti slides. We've been educating UCL doctors and producing doctors since 1834, and we produce over 300, sometimes close to 350 pretty distinctive UCL doctors every year. Again, very proud of that. We've had Nobel Prize winners in our ranks, and we've had lots of really world-class clinical researchers amongst our alumni. And at the end of our programme, you will exit with a primary medical qualification, the MBBS, which enables you to practice as a doctor in the UK at a variety of any of our hospitals, other hospitals outside of London, or indeed in the world. So we get asked this a lot: what distinguishes UCL Medical School from, say, other schools in London? They're all good. As Dr. Bennett said, wherever you go, you will get a great education, and everybody will take the same medical licensing assessment exam at the end. So you're going to be great wherever you go. But why UCL? Well, as I alluded to, London is a fantastic city. And we're very proud of our course structure, which is not necessarily unique, but it's quite distinctive. And we'll go on to mention some of the features of why that is. As you'll know from looking at some of the information, speaking to perhaps UCL medical students, you'll know that we have a mandatory integrated BSc in our 3rd year. And for some particularly keen future clinician scientists, we have the MBPhD, which only a couple of medical schools in the country have. So that is really a big commitment, and that means that you would be studying at UCL for around 10 years. We are, of course, not just a healthcare faculty. We sit within a multi-faculty institution. UCL is a really large university, so you'd have the opportunity to interface with students across all different disciplines across the UCL community. As I said, we have a strong research pedigree and we're quite well known for that. And of course, we have this amazing student body, and you'll be able to ask our students around RUMS, which is our student union, if you like, and you'll be able to speak to them about why they like UCL, and they'll be very honest with you. So how do we teach and how do we assess? Because medical students, and in fact, all students are quite interested in assessment. So we have large lectures, particularly in the early years, but also in other years of the programme. We have quite a lot of tutorial-based small group teaching, and also we would expect our students to do a degree of self-paced learning, which is asynchronous. In other words, it can be done in your own time. We have a lot of community-based learning, which is not just general practice, it's in other community-based settings. And we have a really strong lean of practical and clinical skills that run throughout our MBBS programme. And again, we're not unique, but we are extremely privileged to have people donate their bodies to us. And so we do have full body cadaveric dissection at UCL, and this is an incredible opportunity. Once you get to the clinical years, that's years 4, 5, and 6, our students mainly learn in the clinical setting, and we'll go on to tell you a bit about some of our clinical partners, which are in primary care, general practice, and in multiple of our collaborator trusts. So places like the Royal Free, the Whittington, UCLH, North Middlesex, Barnet, etc. So how do we assess? We assess essentially in 2 ways. We have formative, which are not progression requirements, and summative, which are end-of-year progression requirement exams. And we test through written papers, which take the form of applied knowledge tests. So those are a bit like multiple choice. We call them single best answer questions. And also we have these clinical and practical exams called CPSAs. You might hear people call them OSCEs. And they test people's clinical knowledge and their professional skills. This is a snapshot from our MBBS curriculum map at UCL, and I know it might look a little bit overwhelming, but believe it or not, these are the things that you're going to come out at the end of 6 years knowing about. In the first couple of years, it is fundamentals of science and as they relate to clinical practice. And you can see some of the modules that we teach there in years 1 and 2. Year 3, which I mentioned, is the BSc year. That's got a different pace. Students tend to really enjoy delving into a scientific area, and we've got a broad range of BScs that we offer across a number of faculties. In years 4, 5, and 6, we have clinical learning, and you'll see, look at all those different specialties that you'll get exposed to. Of course, primary care underpins all of those, but you come out of medicine knowing almost a whole nother language. And then another thing that underpins all the way through our MBBS curriculum is the clinical and professional practice arena, which is 16 different modules that can't just fit into one horizontal year, as we call it. And they are a whole breadth of things that contribute to you being a rounded and worldly professional at the end of it. So things like ethics and law, clinical communication, doctor as data scientist, which thinks about AI and big data. So we are very concerned about people's well-being whilst they're at UCL Medical School. It's a long course, it's expensive. London is quite a fast-paced city. So we offer a whole array of different ways to support you as students here. We have personal tutors, student advisors, we have RUMS, our student society, and we have a whole range of well-being interventions and activities. We also have specialist careers advice, and we will speak to you shortly about some of the accommodation options, and these come up quite a lot in the Q&A. Financially, it is expensive, and we have luckily a wide range of scholarships and bursaries that you can apply for. And the most important thing is that you choose to apply to a medical school where you think you will fit in and where you will thrive as a student. So at this point, let me hand back to Dr. Bennett, and I look forward to answering some of your questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Gishin. So lots more information about our programme are available on our website. So do have a look at the website itself. Do have a look at the recording that Professor Gishin and I did that's on our website. So you can have a look at also student experiences that are available on there as well. So now that we've convinced you that UCL is the place that you want to study, now how do you get in? So it is a process of preparation and of fact-finding to get into medical school. It is competitive. In the UK, there are over 40 medical schools. In fact, I think at last count, there were 48 different medical schools. They are all excellent and will all give you a fantastic education, but each one is slightly different in terms of the course structure, in terms of whether there is a BSc, where they are located, for example. And so some of those things are part of your preparation, is finding out about those medical schools. Then you need to think about your qualifications. You need to make sure that you meet those minimum entry requirements that are needed for the medical schools that you wish to go to. So we require that you have studied English language and maths at GCSE and have scored a grade 6 or a grade B in those subjects. But of course, there are alternatives if you are overseas. And A-levels do need to include both biology and chemistry. And you need to be predicted to have an A star in one of those two subjects and A's in the other two. The application is the 15th of October, and from this year, all students will need to sit the UCAT. So pretty much all medical schools in the UK now require you to sit UCAT. The BMAT test no longer exists. And so we just require you to submit your UCAT scores. Then we will select based on those scores and invite you to interview. And we do multiple mini interviews between December and March, and then hopefully make you an offer. And so a little bit more about the entry requirements. There is a QR code up there where you can look this up. But we have between 3,000 and 4,000 applications every year. And so we usually interview around a third of our applicants in total between December and March. And we currently have 337 places for our students, which includes 24 places for international students. And that is capped by the UK government. As mentioned, there are minimum academic requirements, and so I would strongly suggest that you make sure you look at those. And if you are eligible for a contextual offer, so have a look at the criteria on our background that you are eligible for a widening participation offer, then you will be made an offer that's 2 grades lower at AAB, and you'll be able to apply with those lower grades. Work experience is often something we're asked about, and actually we have no minimum requirement, nor do we require you to have clinical work experience. We appreciate that it's difficult for everybody to gain clinical work experience, and so other things are important. And so work experience is anything that gives you an idea about what it is like to work in that sort of setting, to look after other people, to work with other people, and to think about and reflect upon the skills that you are developing. So you'll see there that there might be in-person classes where you come to a university or come to a session where they are talking about medicine and healthcare. You might do some laboratory experience, but you might work in a coffee shop. You might work in a supermarket, and you are gaining experiences there of teamwork, of resilience, of dealing with customers, and of thinking about what the needs of other people might be. So there are lots of options out there for you, and I recommend that you look at Medical Schools Council website in the UK that gives you some advice about that. And these days, there's also a range of virtual work experiences as well, which are fantastic resources for finding out about looking after patients. Our interviews are multiple mini interviews, again, like most medical schools in the UK and in fact across the world. And what we want to do with that is for home students, we do that in person. For overseas students, we do that online. Just because obviously from a sustainability perspective, it is much more challenging for you to fly over to the UK for an interview. So we run a similar sort of format online instead. But as you can see there, we run 8 stations usually, and each one is 5 minutes in length, and you go sequentially through those stations where we ask you more about you as a person. So we don't use your personal statement as part of the selection. We have just used the UCAT score. So now we need to know more about your interest in healthcare, about your knowledge and understanding of the values and attributes that are needed to study in a healthcare setting. And we will have some questions and prompts in order to develop your answers further within those stations themselves. And of course, it's your opportunity to communicate with us and to show us your passion for a future career as a doctor. So our advice to you is that studying medicine is tough, it's long, but it's brilliant. It's a fantastic career. I would thoroughly recommend it. And so if that's what you want to do, you go for it. But do some research, find out about medical schools, find out how they are different, read websites, and look at Medical Schools Council for lots of additional information as well. Keep up to date with healthcare, have a look at what's in the news, and talk about that with your family, with your friends, with your teachers, because that will really help you to know, is this something I'm interested in, and to talk about at your interview as well. And reflect on what you already do. We certainly don't need you to be in an orchestra or to play an instrument or to be captain of a team. But think about those things that you do at school already that are helping you to develop those skills and attributes that we've talked about. And for UCAT, it's certainly looking at the freely available resources that are on the UCAT website. We don't recommend that you need to go on a course at all. Do them in a timed fashion and talk about the answers with your friends and your teachers. It is competitive, but don't give up. I think you can do it. And so we wish you all the best in getting there. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point, and I've noticed that there are lots of questions that are coming up in the question and answer section. And so I'm going to invite my panel now to put their cameras on and to be ready to potentially answer some of the questions that we have here. So I am going to come to Professor Gishin first, if that's possible. So Professor Gishin, there's a question about where do you go after medical school? So what sort of careers does medicine allow you to do?
Oh gosh, what a good question. I mean, the world is your oyster really when you come out as a doctor. You get your primary medical qualification, you do your foundation jobs, F1 and F2, and then you can start to specialise, whether that's in primary care or it's in hospital medicine, or you can have a sort of portfolio career. So as you progress a bit, you might choose medical education, you might choose medical legal work, you might choose research. It really is a very vast umbrella. Most of us have just seen a lot of patients and done a lot of clinical work in our time. That's the absolute essence of what being a doctor is. But as you progress, there are lots and lots of really interesting things that you can do. I've just named a few.
I wondered if you might follow up on that one, because there's a question about the workplace in medicine at the moment. I'm sure lots of the students on the call have heard about the strikes in the UK and about some of the challenges that doctors face. I wondered if you might just expand upon that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, you know, we'd be disingenuous if we said that medicine was just a happy place. It has its challenges, like pretty much every profession and every career has. There have been strikes involving both junior and senior consultants. There has been quite a lot of churn post-COVID. You'll read that the waiting lists are long, that there's challenges around resumption of elective lists and things like that. But I really think it's important that we keep our eyes on the prize. I absolutely love seeing patients when I see them. I learn from patients every time I'm in a clinic or I'm on the wards. And I think medicine remains an absolutely brilliant profession. It is not without complexity. It is not without some ups and downs, but it really does remain a fantastic job.
Thank you very much. I think we can all say as doctors that it is an amazing profession, and you're very privileged to be in the position of being a doctor, and that patients, when they're most vulnerable, come for your help, and that you can help in many cases. And so it is a fantastic career. It does open many doors to you, not only clinical careers, but also education careers like myself and Professor Gishin, but also research careers. There are quite a lot of doctors that do research alongside their career as well. And so there are so many options out there, and that's what is brilliant about medicine. So I'm going to come to Yu Ching next. So there are a few questions, obviously, from overseas students about being an overseas student in medical school here. So what made you choose to come to London and study at UCL?
From a practical point of view, it's most likely because this is the only medical school that accepted me in the UK. So, and I'm very grateful for being here. It's been amazing. The reason why I applied in the first place was, first of all, it has a really good reputation, and I love the fact that it's been working with really great hospitals for a very long time. So I know that I'll be in for like really interesting cases, very insightful professors, doctors. So that was part of the reason why. And also London is amazing as a city. You never run out of things to do, and the patient population is also very diverse, as well as the doctors, obviously. So yeah, I don't see any drawbacks apart from the costs.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And I wondered if I could come to Arya next. I wondered if you could just give, as president of RUMS, if you could tell us a little bit more about RUMS and what sort of clubs and societies are part of RUMS, and what is it all about?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Bennett. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone in the call today, wherever you are. I'm Arya. I'm in my 4th year at medical school, and I'm also the president of RUMS. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering, what is RUMS? Well, it stands for the Royal Free University College Middlesex Student Association. It's made up of students, and it's led exclusively by students as well. And it's essentially the merger of like 3 different hospitals that happened in 1998. And we've been going strong, putting on activities for the med school across years 1 through to 6. We look out for your academics as well. So we constantly liaise with the medical school to make sure that the course is being ran best for us. Also, welfare, we support our students by putting on a bunch of events, getting people to come in, do things like yoga, talk about mindfulness, all of this. Listen to you guys, put out feedback forms. We just want things to be done really well. And naturally, we also have our own branches of sports and societies. So interestingly, at UCL, they have central societies, but at RUMS, we have our own set of clubs and sports and societies as well. So you'll get, say, UCL football, but you'll also get RUMS football. And RUMS football is just mostly made up of medical students. And it's not just football. We do things like rugby, cricket, rowing. We even have a comedy society as well, the MDs, who we love and cherish, and they've been going at it for a long, long time. We've got music society too. Yes, I know one of, yeah, Yu Ching is part of it. We've got a load on basically, and we're trying to make it always more inclusive every year, and trying to grow our membership and all of this. And so you'll never get bored essentially if you're part of RUMS and get stuck in. We try to do the most. And I'm happy to take loads of questions as well if you're curious about what RUMS is and what else we do in more specifics. But that's it in short. Thanks.
Thank you, Arya. I think from my perspective, that's what's amazing about UCL, is the way that our students support each other through the 6 years of the course. It is a long course, and actually our students work so well together to get each other through the course and to help each other. So you don't have to be part of a sports club or a particular society, but there are so many options for you to go along and meet students in the later years of the course, to learn with and from them, to get their advice. And so it is a fantastic way to develop long-lasting relationships. Certainly a lot of people I went to medical school with, I'm still in contact with. In fact, I'm married to one of them. And so you do certainly make friends for life when you come to medical school. So I noticed there are a few questions about UCAT, and I anticipated that there probably would be. So as you probably are all aware, BMAT was withdrawn from the system this year. And so the test that we will be using for applicants applying in 2024 onwards is UCAT. Now, it will be the first time that we will be using UCAT, so we have no historical data to go on. Every medical school has a different cohort of students who apply to them. So it isn't even that we can use somebody else's data. And it will be a different cohort of students who apply this year to us. So the range of schools can be very different. And indeed, it depends on how many students we actually interview as to the score that we will go down to in order to get an interview. If students meet the eligibility criteria, you meet our minimum entry requirements. That's the very first hurdle that we look at. If you meet those, we then rank your UCAT scores top to bottom. We obviously rank our international students separately because we have 24 specific places that are for international students. So you're ranked separately, but home students are ranked from top to bottom. Our Access UCL students are also ranked separately as well. And then we start inviting to interview. So if you score well, you are giving yourself the best chance of being invited to interview. So that is all the information that I can give you about UCAT, I'm afraid. So there is no threshold score, there is no cutoff score that we can give you. This kind of data may well come in the future, but as I say, just like BMAT, the range of scores did vary quite significantly every year because it is a different cohort of students. So I hope that that does allay some of your worries about it, but please just do the best that you can in the test over this summer. Okay, so I'm going to come on to Anne-Mary, if that's possible. So Anne-Mary, you're doing an IBSc. I wondered if you could just tell everybody a little bit more about your choice of IBSc and the process for that.
Yeah, hi guys, my name is Anne-Mary and I'm in my 3rd year and I'm doing an IBSc in pediatrics. So in terms of the application process, basically when you're in 2nd year, there's about like 20 IBSCs or something like that, and then you rank your top 5, and for your 1st and 2nd one you sort of write like a little personal statement. There's a few questions and you answer them, and then these get sent off to your top 2 options, and based on that you might be given an offer for your top one, if not maybe your 2nd one, and if not your 3rd, 4th, or 5th. This depends on how many people apply for that course, and then obviously how your personal statement is. So something like pediatrics is one of the more competitive one, and there are some where if you apply for it, you will get the spot straight away. So it's important that you get some information on it with like the places and stuff. So it's quite important to look at, because there's no point putting pediatrics 2nd, for example, because you probably won't get given it. Anyways, so the main reason that I picked pediatrics is that I really like children, and I sort of just wanted a bit of exposure to that essentially. So a great thing about pediatrics is that there's an aspect of science to it, there's an aspect of social care to it, and you get some work experience in Great Ormond Street, which is one of the best pediatric hospitals in the world. And so that wide range of variety is something that really attracted to me, because I really wanted that clinical exposure. Whereas some of the other ones are more sort of like research and more scientific, or you might find some that are more like historical. So there's a wide range of varieties, but yeah, that's one of the main reasons that I picked pediatrics.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Anne-Mary. So we have around 20 different IBSEs that students can choose from. You do that in year 3 of the programme. So all students, apart from graduates, will take it at the same time. So in between doing the first 2 years of preclinical and before you go on to the clinical years of the course. So I'm going to come to students as well about accommodation. So did anybody stay in halls of residence in their first year? Yuting, would you mind talking a little bit about accommodation that's on offer?
So for both international students and UK students, I don't think UCL will make arrangements for you, but you do have the option as first years to stay in UCL halls, which is what I did because I wanted to make friends outside of medicine and basically have that uni experience as a first year, which I did. They were all international students, and we had lots of discussions about culture, basic unit stuff, and yeah, I even helped one of them learn how to cook. So that was great. And from second year onwards, there's no guaranteed hall accommodation from UCL. So most people will move out of their halls, and basically most of them will find flatmates and share a flat, but you can also look out for private student accommodation. And there are also charities around that providing low cost accommodation if you're into that. So yeah, it's quite expensive, especially from first year to second, but it is doable, basically.
Fabulous, thank you very much. And anybody live at home in their first year? I think, Aria, you did because it was the pandemic. How did you find living at home?
Yeah, I've lived at home for some time now, actually. Being a fourth-year med student, 3 of those years were spent at home. Part of that is because of the pandemic in my first couple of years, but also part of that is just living in London. I might as well live at home, save some money on the rent, right? But honestly, it's not that bad. London is one of the most well-connected cities on the planet. TfL, as much as we like to complain about it, here is actually pretty good. And so you really wouldn't find much of a problem commuting from home if you live in London. I've never struggled, and I feel like I've been able to get involved with RUMs and with the med school, with my teaching and my friends and like social life outside of university, all of that very comfortably. So I think it's fine to live at home. You shouldn't be worried. There's definitely people that make it work.
Super, that's very reassuring, thank you. And there are a lot of students. London is a bit of a commuter city, and so there are a lot of students at all the London medical schools that commute in from outside London, and it is very doable. Perfect. So I'm going to now move on to Simon. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the clubs and societies that you've been involved in whilst you've been a medical student, and therefore the work-life balance that is able as a medical student?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in my second or third year, I was doing a little bit of football. I tried out hockey, I tried badminton, and most of these were RUMs, but I got the opportunity to do non-RUMs sports activities as well. I think overall it's just a fantastic experience because it's very easy to get bogged down with all the work, especially with first and second year. And like it can be tough. And it's very nice to just have medics, non-medics, just anyone else, especially in your flats, just to socialize and use that as downtime away from medicine. And yeah, it's just a fantastic experience. And with work life, I feel like this is something that comes up almost just university in general, and it can definitely be a bit of a challenge to get used to. There's definitely an adjustment period, especially after year 12, year 13. But there's a certain kind of peace in knowing that if you're with your flatmates or if you're with other students, everyone's kind of on the same boat as well, because everyone, is moving out. It's the first time as well. So you kind of suffer together a little bit, which is quite nice. So yeah, like, learning how to cook, learning how to do the washing properly, learning how to do grocery shopping properly. It can be a challenge, but all very, very doable. I think as long as you have a positive mindset and as long as you're not falling too far behind your work. And also if you do happen to experience any hardships here and there, there's always, you've got friends and family to rely on. You've got the UCL support wellbeing like members to rely on, and more often than not, there will always be someone who is more than happy to just have a chat. So yeah, in general, it works if you make it work. So yeah, very doable.
Fantastic. Thank you, Simon. All of our students are amazing. I'm always so surprised at how much our students do outside of their work, but it's very, very doable. So within the timetable, certainly in the early years, it's very lecture-based, and you probably see quite a lot in the timetable. However, there is plenty of time outside of that to do other activities, and we would encourage you to do that. That's what makes you a well-rounded individual. And it is important when you become a doctor that you do have outside activities as well, and that work doesn't become your life. So that's really important. So I'm going to answer a few questions that are in the Q&A about entry requirements, because I can see that some of those are coming up frequently. So the first one is about GCSEs. So the only GCSE that we require and that we look at is GCSE English Language and Maths. So those are the only two that you have to have scored a grade 6 or above in. We do not look at the number or grades of any other GCSEs. Now, if you have not scored a grade 6 in either of those subjects, we do allow you to resit them alongside your A-levels or IB to be able to score a 6. But you would have to demonstrate that on your UCAS application to us. So you need to make sure that you put in that you are retaking it, and that you are predicted to achieve a 6 or above. Okay. We do not accept resits of A-levels. Now, A-levels, we have a minimum academic entry requirement of A*, AA. It does not matter if you are predicted more than that. That makes no difference. We just look that you meet the minimum to show that you are eligible. The A* must be in biology or chemistry. The third subject that you take does not matter. There is a huge assumption out there that everyone needs to do maths, and that is not the case. The third subject that you do can be anything except critical thinking or general studies. So you can do history, you can do a language, you can do English, you can do design and technology, you can do dance, you can do music. That is absolutely fine, okay? Doing 4 subjects confers no advantage. Okay, because we're not scoring you, we're not ranking you based upon the A-levels that you're taking. So I would always say to applicants is just make sure that you can be predicted the minimum academic entry requirements and that you are going to achieve those. Because it's very unlikely that we'll be able to give you a place if you don't meet those entry requirements when you take your exams in the summer. That's really important. Okay, so I hope that that's covered some of the GCSE and A-level questions that we have. Oh, and there is also a question about EPQ. So the EPQ is obviously a great qualification to do, but we do not score it, rank it, or use it as part of selection. What I would say, because it's not fair, because not everybody gets the opportunity to be able to do an EPQ, but if you are doing an EPQ, is to think about what sort of skills you're developing as a consequence of that you are doing some personal independent research and work and academic writing, but you can also achieve that in other ways. So you can do massive open online courses, for example. You can be part of a MedSoc at school and do some writing as part of that. And so it's not something that we require, but it might be something that you might want to reflect upon when you come to interview, perhaps. And the last thing that I want to cover is there are a few questions about personal statements. Again, we do not use personal statements as part of the selection process. It wouldn't be fair for us to use those because everybody writes those in a different way. And so we make sure that you meet the first hurdle of the minimum academic entry requirements, and then we move on to your UCAT scores only. So it is the UCAT score that will get you an interview with us. All right. Brilliant. So I'm going to come back to students now. So Glorianne, can I ask you a little bit about year one, because you're currently in your first year. Can you tell us a little bit more about the timetabled activities that you do and a bit about some of the clinical activities that you've done as well?
Hi, I'm Gloria and I'm in year one. In terms of like the timetable activity, most of them are lectures because it's preclinical. It's a preclinical year, so I'm in lectures for most of the week, but there is space available on Wednesday in the afternoon to do like sports or around society, and we also do computer assisted learnings, which is like when you're in like a lab with a bunch of computers, and there's tasks for you to do, which is fun. So the most recent one I've done is related to the last module, which is just about fluids, nutrition, and metabolism as a broad spectrum. Sorry, what was the last part of the question?
About some of the clinical
Oh, yeah.
aspects that come into year one.
Yeah, so we also have CPP groups, which is clinical professional practice. We're in a group with 15 other medical students, and you meet up mostly like at least once a week on a Thursday. For me, it was a Thursday morning, and in those sessions we do have discussions which are clinical based and including like ethics, and we also have the opportunity to go to 2 clinical placements in the year, which I did. One of them was like a community-based placement, and the other one was a GP placement, which was really beneficial for me because it's kind of hard to just think about how all the lectures will correlate to being a doctor. And so you go out there to do the clinical placements. And we also have clinical skills, which you learn about examinations, which is also fun.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Glorianne. So we do have an integrated course and we do have some clinical contact in the early years, but of course in the early years it's mostly dedicated to learning those building blocks of science that you need to then help you go into clinical practice in year 4, 5 and 6. And so we do have some general practice placements and community placements. We do have patients that come in to the medical school to talk to you in small groups about their experiences. And we do clinical skills sessions. So you learn how to examine the body, the heart, the lungs, the abdomen, to take blood pressure, to put on ECG stickers to take a heart reading. And so we do all of those practical skills as well in the early years of the course to give you the context in which you are learning. And we talk a lot about clinical cases within your learning as well. So it does give you the idea of why you are learning that science in the early years of the course to prepare you for year 4, 5 and 6. So I am going to come back to another couple of questions about interviews. So there are some questions about what happens after the interview. So we use your interview score. So it's a total score of all the stations. They are marked. You get a score for the station, you get a total score. And then again, we rank you from top to bottom. And so if we are making 500 offers, then the top 500 people will be made an offer. And so that is the way that we do it. It's the fairest way that we can do it. So it's to just do your best in the interview, isn't it? That's what's important, is to talk to your friends and family about different aspects of healthcare, about what's on the TV, in the news. Have a look at the 6 o'clock news and what healthcare is being talked about there, and talk to your family about it. And show your interest, show your passion, show us why you want to study medicine and what you know about it as a career. Because unlike any other degree course at university, isn't it? You are coming for 6 years and you're coming to study for a career ahead of you. So you will be a doctor at the end of it. And so you've got to convince us at your interview that you know what that means, and that you have the attributes and behaviours that we are looking for in our future doctors as well. Brilliant, thank you. So I'm going to come to Professor Gishan, if that's okay, about a question about scholarships and bursaries and funding in general. Would you mind just going into a little bit of detail about what's available at UCL?
Yes, and I don't know if a colleague might be able to drop a useful link into the chat that you can look at. So we recognise that a 6-year programme can be expensive. We recognise that living in London can be expensive. So we do happily have a range of scholarships and bursaries that we can offer students who qualify for these. There's a whole range. There are things to do with hardship funds. There are things to do with if you come into some difficulties in an urgent situation, we can quite often help you out financially with that. So we are lucky. We have a breadth of scholarships and bursaries throughout the 6 years of the programme. So there's also things like the NHS bursary, which some students are eligible for in the latter years of the programme. And also, if we have placements which are a bit further away outside of the central travelling zones in London, we can reimburse some of the travel costs for those. So I hope that answers some of those.
Amazing, thank you very much. Super, so we have answered lots of questions. So we've answered 94 so far, and there are lots of links under those questions to have a look at. And so a lot of the information that we are talking about today is absolutely on our website. And so we aren't hiding anything. It is all there. And there's no secret code to getting into medical school. It is being fully aware of what you are getting yourself into. It is being fully aware of what it is to study medicine and to be a doctor. That's what's important. I noticed in the Q&A that quite a few students have asked about very specific qualifications that they are studying overseas. So please, can I ask that you have a look at our prospectus, because it clearly outlines what qualifications we do accept as alternatives. There are only a few overseas qualifications that we do accept as alternatives. On the whole, it's mostly that you're sitting A-levels or doing the International Baccalaureate. But if you're not sure, I would encourage you to message into the admissions team. So the central admissions team does have a web form that you can fill in, and then they will be able to give you clarification about your own personal circumstances, about what you are sitting. Okay, so we've got about 7 minutes to go. So I'd like to come to students again about some of the reasons why you chose to come to UCL. So perhaps we come to Aria first.
Certainly. So UCL, we know, is one of the most prestigious med schools on the planet. We've retained the top 10 for so long, and I mean, who isn't going to be attracted to that sort of label? It's there for people, intelligent people, hardworking people. I thought this is the place to be. Not to mention, it's got some of the most cutting-edge labs. The research here is fantastic. It is renowned for the quality that it produces, the international recognition. If there's a place to be for science, it's UCL. And London as a city as well has always drawn me because it's one of the best cities on the planet. Why not stick around and make the most of it? We are going to be, in our 20s at university. Why not live in one of the most fun areas ever? So London, to me, that was such a big draw. But also the vibe of UCL. I think different universities, they have different vibes. UCL is super multicultural. There's so much going on. If you look at the societies list on the UCL website, you will find all kinds of crazy, whack stuff. It's not just STEM. It's not just humanities. It's everything, and everyone can find something. And I just thought, okay, well, if I'm going to go somewhere and spend 6 years of my life in an environment, I'd want to be able to do anything and everything. So that's why UCL was the one for me, and I have not looked back since. And I really encourage all of you to come along.
Thank you very much. Anne Mary, may I come to you to ask you a little bit about how you adapted to the transition into medical school and to university, and about sitting in large lectures? How did you find that, and what did you do to help?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that was a little bit harder for me, especially because I took a gap year. So I'd gone a year out without studying, and because it was during the pandemic, without seeing people. So it is a tricky transition to university because of the different teaching style. But one thing that UCL does that I'm sure in all the other medical schools do is that the first few weeks are sort of like a transition module where they it's called like Foundations of Health and Medical Practice. And they basically cover all the little bits so that, you know, everyone is up to date with the same level of teaching. Because obviously some people are from year 13, some are gap years, some have done a different degree. And so by doing that, everyone's up to the same level of teaching. And I think that really helps me, because I was quite nervous about forgetting all the science that I learned. And what really helped with the transition was the Freshers Week. So there's a UCL-wide Freshers Week, and then there's a ROM-specific one. And it was a great way to meet people from my own year, and then like people from the other years who were in community and everything. And through that, you know, you're able to interact with other people and make friends. And that really helped my transition, because you realize that everyone is feeling the same as you, and yeah, you're in the same boat and you help each other out, basically.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And so I think we're coming towards the end of this webinar today. So we've answered a lot of questions. I hope it has helped you to think about UCL, and to think about your future career as a doctor. And do have a look at some of the links that we have posted in the chat and elsewhere for you. And if you have any other questions, please do get in touch, because the other way in which you can find out more is to come to one of our in-person open days. So we are running those in June, so the 28th and 29th of June this year. You can come to us on hopefully a lovely sunny day. It invariably is quite hot when we run our open days. You can come and hear more about the course, and come and speak to a medical student, speak to some of our members of staff about what it is like to be here at UCL. You can even practice some clinical skills if you like. So Dr. Farrar, as an anaesthetist, often will do some airway management with you, just to make sure that we can get the boiled sweet out of the throat. And it's a lot of fun, and it's great to be on campus and to meet everybody. It's a great way to find out whether you feel that the university is a place for you. I'm going to come to each student and just ask you for one sentence and one tip for applying to medical school. So Yuqing first.
I would say try not to compare with your peers, because everyone's actually on a different journey. And even if you don't end up in medicine, you might be somewhere that you'll actually enjoy yourselves more.
Lovely, that's fantastic. And Mary?
Read the news, be up to date with current issues. You will be asked for it. So make sure you know what's going on. Know what's happening with the strikes, know what's happening with everything. You will be asked.
Fantastic, good advice. Simon?
I'd say it's if you're sure about medicine, it's not if, it's when. It's taught by one of my year 12 teacher who was also applying for medical school when he got in too. So yeah, always remember that.
Amazing, that's so inspiring. Thank you. Glorianne?
I'd say take it one step at a time, because it's easy to feel overwhelmed with like the admissions test process, getting work experience, volunteering, as well as like writing your personal statement. So just take it one step at a time, and you'll find by the end of it, when you finally get an interview, that everything has like added up and it was worth it.
That's lovely advice. I totally agree with you. And Aria?
I'd say be bold, be ambitious, don't be afraid to take opportunities and jam your foot in the door, even if you don't want to walk through it. You won't look back, you won't regret it, and medicine really favors the bold, I think. So don't forget,
Fantastic.
be bold.
Thank you very much. And last word, Professor Gishin, a top tip from you to finish off our webinar today.
I have loved a career in medicine. I think it's a fascinating, fascinating career, and I wish you all well, and I hope to see many of you as future UCL students. Good luck.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that's been useful. We look forward to hearing more from you and perhaps seeing us at our in-person open day in the future. Have a lovely rest of the day. Bye-bye, everybody.